Okay, I'm live. So glad to be here with you guys tonight. Got my chair because my graduate's coming over here tonight, and I'm going to make sure I got the chat going. Yes, yes. So when you join me, please tell me that you're here. You can tell me where you're watching this from. You can tell me anything. Just say hi. So my first graduate that you guys are going to get to meet here in just a second, she is coming over here because she is a personal friend of mine and she was wanting to go through the program, and it just so happens that she is the very first graduate of the Christian Method. So what better way to interview her than to just ask her to come over here? Of course, I'm not going to be doing that with every single person who goes through the program, but this is special. This is the first person who's gone through the 16-week program, and I just cannot wait for you to meet her and to hear what she has to say about her experience. And I told her to be very honest and very authentic and raw about this so that you guys can ask questions that maybe she can answer, or you'll just hear what that experience was like for someone making a really big decision for their mental health. So I am so glad to be here. I'm so glad that you guys are here. On these Monday night streams, I really try to keep it very much more casual than what I'm doing in my private practice for sure. So I was thinking about what am I going to wear? I'm always trying to make a statement with the things that I'm wearing. And so I'm wearing my shirt that says, I can't, you can't see the bottom part. It says, I can't, but I know a guy. Do you know a guy? Do you realize that you just fall short constantly and there's so many things that you can't do, but you know someone who can? So I am not seeing anyone in the chat, but I hear someone at the door. Come on in. There she is. Oh, and Piper just kind of snuck in too. Okay. Okay. Will you just make yourself cozy? Hopefully we can both see and be seen here. It worked out great. Oh, good. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you were here. Okay, look, see what people are here.
Hi, Ellen. Hi, Judy.
Yes, hi, you guys. I'm so glad that you're here. I am Amy. Well, I'm taking care of something really quick. Why don't you tell them a little bit about you?
Okay, hi. I am really excited and honored that I get to be the first graduate of the Christian Method. This is something that I've been really excited to try and to take part in. I think just like everyone involved in this, I was just looking for ways to help improve my life and just really think about dealing with anxiety and stress and that wasn't necessarily about myself, but I'm a mom.
Yeah. Yes, tell us
And
about you.
I'm a wife, and I am just really I work hard, and I think like a lot of people, just kind of looking for ways to manage and juggle everything.
Can you tell us what you do for a living?
So I am an educator. I help coach teachers, and so it's a great job, and I love it, and I'm really looking forward to summer. I just started my summer, and
I bet you are.
I'm ready for a break and to be refreshed and ready to go back next year.
You represent the teachers everywhere, right?
I try.
Summer, yay! Got to refuel, people. Yes. Okay, so Judy and Ellen and Pamela, I am so glad. See, they sent a
Hi,
message to you,
Pam.
Amy. Thanks for coming. So sweet. So as we are talking, I'm going to be asking Amy some questions. I want you guys to please feel really comfortable in, if you have a question that you want to make sure that she addresses or the two of us together, put that in the chat, please. I will be more than happy to try to work that in. You know that we're going to be talking about her experience in the Christian Method, but we're also going to take time to talk about anxiety over the lifespan. And I imagine that you guys are equally excited about both topics, and I want to give that to you. So you don't have to watch the chat at all. I will keep my eyes on that and make sure that we address people when they get here. I hope that, in fact, I'll just ask, did any of you guys, hi, Kimberly, and hi, Marcia. Did any of you guys have a difficult time getting in? Because I realized that I had started like a save the live stream coming, and then when I hit live, it didn't necessarily launch that. So I hope that that's not the case, but it looks like a little. Judy said a little. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Well, there's a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. And all of you guys that have been here, I know. And Ellen says a little wonky getting in. Yeah, I may just not, until further notice, I may just not like reserve a coming soon thing, because I couldn't launch it from that part. That's right, Ellen. See, she believes in me. She says we'll get this down. Absolutely. Just to make it easier, I might just go live when it's time. And those of you that are subscribing, by the way, thank you so much for those of you that are subscribing to this channel and that you're telling others. Remember when I was asking you to help me get to 50 because I couldn't go live? Well, now we have over 75. Look at you guys. I'm so proud of you. And look, we have 12th Street Talkback. That is my new friend, Victoria. So glad that you are here. Look at this. You people are excited. And I know it's not just because of me. I see a message. How encouraging that you took the class and that you can share what you learned with teachers. Oh, and she will. She absolutely will. She is definitely, she's got some assertive traits, which is why we have been friends. So I'm just going to jump right into it, okay? And I'm going to hope to catch my eye over here at the chat and address when you guys are here. But if I miss something that you're saying, especially if it's a question, will you put like a big Q by it? And that way one of us will come back and address that. See how casual we are? Amy has to get up and let Piper out because
And then she doesn't want to go out.
she's honestly had enough of anxiety and depression talk in her life, because she's in here a lot. And she's like, you know what? I need to do something different for a while. So, all right, I'm just going to start with my first question. What did you know? I'm going to start with this. What expectations, Amy, did you have when starting this program, or did you have any?
I don't know if I had expectations. I think I was excited to learn, but I was hopeful that I was going to come out of this with some skills to help me with anxiety and just in life in general. But my expectation, knowing you, I knew that it was going to be really helpful and it was going to be great, but I didn't know exactly what to expect. I know, like, along this journey, I've kind of been blessed that I was able to hear some of your journey in creating this, but I was still not exactly sure what to expect. But I was hopeful that it was going to be something helpful for me.
Yeah, it's a little hard to conceptualize, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, when you hear somebody talking about, I'm creating this online program. Okay, like, how's that going to work?
Right. And I know that you were talking about, okay, well, I'm going to be teaching skills, but also with this faith component to it. And I wasn't exactly, I didn't know what that was going to look like, but because I hadn't seen anything like that before. And it was, I've heard of different programs where there's definitely, talking about your faith and building your faith. And I've seen programs where it's like talking about how to handle anxiety and stressors in life, but I hadn't seen anything where it was merged. So I wasn't really sure how you were going to pull that off, and boy, you sure did.
Thank you. Well, what you said is so true. How can you have expectations about something that you don't have any frame of reference? I mean, what an honor that she's saying, I hadn't even seen anything like that before. Like, that is music to my ears. That's so awesome to hear that. And in all transparency, yes, Amy, absolutely, because she is a personal friend of mine. She did hear from maybe even the beginning of, like, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and I'm not really sure. I'm doing a lot of research and this and that. And so she was definitely hearing kind of the pieces coming together. But again, what an honor it was for her to say, well, I want to be the first one to go through this. I want to do it all the way. It wasn't enough for her to just say, yeah, I'm getting these little these little pieces, these little tidbits from you every once in a while when we're together and you tell me this or that. Like, I want to be the participant in this. I want to be treated like the patient or the client in this. And I want to hear the whole thing. So that's why it's so perfect that I get this chance to talk to you. So tell us about your experience with CBT. What did you understand, or what did you think you knew about CBT even coming into this?
So honestly, I didn't know a whole lot, and I actually did look up the definition of CBT, because I was like, I know I've heard of it. I know it's something to do with therapy, but I wasn't really sure exactly what it was. Um, and so I honestly didn't have a whole lot of experience with it. I knew it had something to do with like changing behaviors, but that was about it. So I was kind of coming in not knowing a whole lot about it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that helped you, or did you see that it impacted your experience at all?
I think either way, I think I would have been fine, because coming in, like, I learned a lot. Like, you were very systematic in teaching a lot about negative thoughts and irrational core beliefs, and ways that you can use CBT to kind of change that. But I think even if I did have some background with it, I do think that you added that faith component to it, that I'm not sure people that are receiving CBT therapy would have that component to it.
Mm, good, good. And I see we have Carol joining us. I'm so glad you're here. Um, okay, my next question is, what would you say to someone that is unsure? Maybe they're a little bit on the fence about doing something like this. They might have an idea of the fact that it deals with mental health and it's combining therapy and theology, but they're still sort of on the fence. Like what you said before is like, how's she going to pull this off? What would you say?
I would say try it. Like, it's really it's been impactful in my life already in the short time that I've been part of the Christian Method, and even after I finished it. I would say try it, because it's really, you're going to go into it. You listen to the different sessions, and I think that one of the things that I love about it, I keep telling Kimberly this, but I feel like it's bite-sized chunks. Like, the sessions aren't an hour and a half. They're, some of them were shorter, 20 minutes, some of them 40 minutes. But I felt like that was doable for me to work into my life, in a commute, on a walk, whatever it may be. And then it was just very easy to follow. Like, it's one of those things where you are very systematic and explicit on, here are the things I want to teach you. Here are some Bible verses to support this teaching. Here are ways that you can use this in your life. You gave great examples. I feel like it was really something that is worthwhile, and I'm glad I did it. So yes, if you're not sure, I think you should try it. And even if, and I think one of the great things about the Christian Method is that Kimberly Christians behind it. And so I think for people that are kind of on the fence, I think if they haven't already, like, to schedule an appointment with you so that you can address any specific questions or concerns that they have, because I think that is one of the things that's great about this program, is that you do check in with people. You do have the Christian Method like hub on Facebook, where you can ask questions and we support each other. And I that was one of the things that I enjoyed, was I felt connected and supported. And I think even like these Monday night lives on YouTube are really helpful, because you're saying things that aren't the exact same thing that you said in the Christian Method, but it supports the teaching there and just enhances it. So I would say try it.
Your answers are so great that you're like already getting into my next question.
Oh, sorry.
So no, don't apologize. This is so good. So you've already talked about like some of the things that you really appreciate or really enjoyed. Is there anything else that you would say when you think like I really enjoyed this was my favorite thing?
Um, I think one of the things I liked about it was initially when you were, when I was learning about this, I was thinking, well, why isn't she doing videos? Like, why would
Mhm.
she not record little videos? And after I started listening to it, I realized, like, oh, I actually prefer that it's not that I wouldn't love to see your beautiful face, but I actually prefer to have it as an audio version because I could listen to it in the car. I could listen to it when I could find time in my schedule to listen to it. And what I liked was I could go back and re-listen to entire lessons or
Mhm.
portions of it. There were times, and I sent you a message a couple times where I was like, wow, this really hit home with me. I
Mhm.
had to stop and rewind, go back and listen to that part again because it really like that was really personal to me, or parts that I was like, oh, okay, I feel like this was really meaty and I need to go back and listen to it a second time to make sure that I got all of it. So I definitely think the part that I could do it at my own pace, that I think I appreciated that was that
Mhm.
I could listen, even if I could only get 10 minutes into it, I could listen to 10 minutes, stop it, come back and listen to the rest of it, or, re listen to parts that really were impactful for me.
Mhm. That's so good. I think people need to hear that that's so validating that, you're a professional and some of these things that you were hearing, you may have already heard. I mean, it may not have been like totally brand new information. And yet you were saying that was really heavy. I needed to go back and listen to that a couple of times because no matter what your intellect is or your experience with therapy, you're now hearing it like for yourself. This isn't like you're hearing it through the lens of a teacher or through the lens of a mom or through the lens of anything else. You're like, this is my life. She just said something that I do or I've
Yeah.
thought, or I see this pattern. And now you're saying that that's the reason why I have this pattern is like, that's the root of it, as I believe this about myself or about others. And so I keep, cycling through this. And more people I know need to really hear that that's normal. In fact, if you guys decide to go forward with the program, that's one of the things that I do say. I tell you that not only is that something that is okay, I recommend it, right? Because the takeaway when you're listening to something, like even something like this, you're going to take away like 10 to 15%. You're not going to take away everything that we cover for the whole hour. And that's just a basic human. So, yeah. And the other thing that she's saying about, I love that you're being so real about the fact that you really wanted it to be a video. And
Mm-hmm.
same, when I was going through the motions of putting this together and having people instruct me and guide me on making decisions, and they were saying, yeah, you're gonna design this kind of like a podcast. And my first reaction, because I've been a therapist for so long and I've always been in front of people, was like, oh no, you can't do it like that. You can't, like, there's so much feeling and so many nonverbals that are coming across, but it takes that temptation away, right? Because you could also have a video that you're sitting in your seat next to you and you're listening to it as you're driving, but the temptation would be there to look at like, what are the
Right.
expressions? What is she doing? Well, she's referring to something. Is she right? But it wasn't even a thought because you realize this is just her voice. And then later, and I'll let you speak to that later, I can look at these visual aids that would go along.
Which was really helpful because you would reference different things that topics and
Mhm.
things that you were teaching, and then you had a visual aid to support that. And
Mhm.
so that was really helpful. There were times when I was driving to work listening, and then I would go back and look at the visual and then say, you know what, I want to go back and listen to what she said about that part again,
Mhm.
and while I was looking at the visual. So that was really helpful. Another thing you were saying, about talking about learning things that you already know,
Mhm.
excuse me, but just looking at them through a different lens. within my job, I use SMART goals. I help teachers set SMART goals, which are just very specific goals with very defined with a timeline, and there's lots of components to it. That is part of my job. That's what I do. But then you were teaching about setting SMART goals within your personal life, and I was like, never even occurred to me. Like, I'm very well versed at setting SMART goals, but it never occurred to me to set personally SMART goals. I've always just thought of it in an educational setting.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really helpful for me. That was something I understood. And you kind of made a crosswalk to it for me to help me understand, like, oh yeah, I could do this for myself, and it can be impactful in my life.
Yes, yes. So I'm noticing Pam is asking if we can give an example of a visual aid. So one, what Amy just talked about, the SMART goal, but to give a little bit more of a concept to that is access to the program. There, it all comes together as one package, but it shows you that there is also access to Google Documents that I put together. And there's almost one for every single lesson that you're going to listen to, because there's a lot of things. There's like there are three separate frameworks that I'm teaching in the program. And you have to be able to look back at what I'm talking about. Just like Amy said, she would listen to it. She'd look at the visual aid later, and then she'd want to re-listen to it again to say, oh, well, now that makes so much more sense because she was saying that, and here's the thing, right? So you have to be able to see, and it's very easy. I mean, the technology part, don't let that intimidate you. I mean, by all means, I am not a very technical person, but look at me, I'm live on YouTube. So figured some things out along the way, and it's important to do that. So you'll just be able to go and you get access to all of them at once. You're not having to fumble around and say, oh my gosh, which one goes with this? It's just, you get them all at the same time. So if you wanted to go back and look at something that isn't a part of the module that you're listening to, you just scroll up and you just look at, whatever the one that you wanted to look at, because they all do go together. They're not disconjointed. It's all building, basically. And Judy is saying, it has been important to me to take a lot of notes so I can go back and read. Yes. So here's another thing to think about with that. And this is something I've said for years, just about therapy in general, never even taking these two, heavyweight concepts and bringing them together is like, think about an onion and think about how there is all these layers. If you really spent time doing it, which most people don't, but you could take an onion and you could just constantly peel all of these very, very thin layers. That's what this is like. That's exactly what it feels like, is that when you're learning the deep, I would call them the deeper concepts of, like, what are my automatic negative thoughts? What are my distortions? What are my cognitive irrational beliefs? That's where the onion comes in, because you start realizing, okay, so here's this big thing that has a name, right? It helps you to realize that you're not just losing your mind. These things actually have names. That's why we all relate to it. And then you start thinking, this one thing has impacted this and this, and I saw it over here, and I do it over here. And you start realizing that it's all over the place, right? So like Judy is saying, it takes time. You cannot just, and if you don't take time, what's going to happen is you'll just pull one of those layers from it and think, oh, that's what I was supposed to get, and not realize that it's your entire life, realizing that if you keep believing that thing, you're not going to have the quality of life that you absolutely could have, because you're taking that belief into all of the decisions that you make.
One of the things that, if you listen to Kimberly, if you know Kimberly, if you've worked with Kimberly, she loves her boundaries. She loves boundaries. And and that was one of the things that, like, when I was going through there was a couple of irrational core beliefs that I'm like, oh yeah, that yeah. And there was one really big one that I was like, oh, that's yes, that is me right there. And then kind of going back and thinking about, like, oh, okay, I've heard Kimberly say this about boundaries and this about boundaries, and making those connections of things that I've learned from Kimberly in the past. I'm like, okay, that's how it connects. Like, that's why I need boundaries, is because I do have this distortion that I'm, working on. So
Mhm.
it was really helpful. And I think what was nice was like after I identified some negative beliefs, negative feelings, and some just I was able. Kimberly was giving skills and strategies to help, and those visuals were there to help as well.
That's what I was just about to ask you. It sounds like you're saying that you found that there was practicality in this. Like
Absolutely.
looking in your
Absolutely.
past and then realizing, oh, that's not just, oh, congratulations, you've got a boundary issue. It's, oh, so there's something I can do about that.
Right.
If I change this thought, if I change this underlying belief, my boundaries are going to actually come easier to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a big aha, because I that was one of those things that I was like, oh, I need to work on boundaries. But now you helped me understand how, if I change this negative thought, if I change this belief, then, and then you kind of help me figure out how to change those, then I would be better at boundaries. I would be, I think different parts of my life might be happier.
Mm-hmm. No, something that if you want to talk about this, I would love for you to. Something you mentioned to me when I have, reached out to you and checked in. How are things going? Whether it was personally or it was, through the support of the Facebook groups. Um, I just lost what I was going to say. What was that? My brain was going in two different directions at the same time. I don't know. I'll cover something different and come back to that. Oh, I know. See, you just got to give yourself some time. Was that you really enjoyed being able to take what you were learning and to share with people that are important to you?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I really loved about this was I would listen to a lesson or two, and then I would come back and share with my husband. And it was really, it was helpful for us because, I've been married for a long time. And as I was sharing things with my husband, I was learning more about him and he was learning more about me. I would, come back and say, hey, here's some automatic negative thoughts. And this is one that I think I struggle with. And it would spark a conversation where then he was like, oh, I didn't realize that was something that you struggled with, or he would share things that he might be struggling with. It sparked conversations. I remember we had a really big conversation about dealing with anxiety, depression, mental illness, and the church, and how you kind of address that sometimes within the church, even though well-meaning, they don't always think about ways that they can support people that have some anxiety, depression, mental illness, other than providing scriptures and prayer. And we had a big discussion about that, and about people in our lives that we know that struggled and didn't necessarily have the tools to get out of it. And so what it just sparked some really great discussions, and I was really able to get to know him better, and we kind of grew together a little bit more through me sharing my learning.
You start kind of speaking the same language.
Right.
Even though you're going through this and you're getting a much deeper view, and it's great practice too. This being, an educator, when you can share something with someone else, you're just getting to know it deeper.
Right.
And so it puts you in a great position to say, hey, let me try this out. I just listened to it one time, but I learned about this distortion called all or nothing thinking, and it kind of sounds like this. And then he's like, oh my gosh, that sounds like me. Or you might say, that explains a lot, Amy. Right? I can see that in a lot of situations that our conflict comes from that distortion.
Right.
Because I'm seeing this or you're seeing this and we're not communicating.
Right.
Yeah.
And it also helped me as a parent too.
Oh,
because,
talk about that.
I'll see some distortions that my kiddo has, and things that I wasn't equipped. I didn't understand exactly what it was, so I wasn't equipped to help support my child with that.
Mm-hmm.
And learning more about it, and then learning ways to address it, was helpful as a parent, because sometimes I would just be frustrated that having all or nothing thinking, or some of the other distortions, and then I would not know what to do. So now I feel like I'm better able to support my kid.
And it's probably empowering to your kid too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, everybody learns from the skills that you guys have. As long as you're not just hoarding it and keeping it to yourself, you're taking that into your families, you're taking that into your friend groups and your community. And I love that. So let me come back to what Victoria said. I don't know if anyone asked, how long did it take to complete the sessions and when did you know? Victoria, what did you mean by when did you know? I'll answer the first part, but what do you mean about when did you know? How long does it take to complete? I think I might understand your question. Anyway, I'm gonna take a dive here at it. If I'm not right, let me know. So there you have the program for a full 16 weeks, and there are 13. Oh, yeah, when you graduate. Okay. So I'll let you talk about that for sure, but
Okay.
I will give the facts. So you have it for 16 weeks. There are 13 lessons or modules. So that you'll do a better job at answering this because you're on the receiving end of this, but the countdown doesn't take you by surprise. I'll put it that way. You're getting emails from me. You're getting check-ins from me to let you know not only where are you at, and you can visually see that, but the closer you get, it's letting you know, hey, you just have a few more weeks. How are things going? And there's a lot of action items that I put at the end of every single lesson that also, I'm just kind of mentioning that along, throwing it in the same pot here. It helps you to see that you really did complete that first lesson. Instead of going back, you're like, oh, okay, I completed those 3 or 4 action tasks. Now I see why it relates to that. I think I've got it. I think I'll start, including that in my life and putting it into application. But talk about, like, on the visual part of the program, how, like, you were showing me this very recently, how you go through that.
Well, so like Kimberly was saying, there's different lessons, and so as you listen to a lesson, there's an option at the end to mark it complete.
Mm-hmm.
So you can click a button and then it will show completed. There were some weeks where I would listen to a lesson, 1 or 2 a week. And then there was a couple weeks where I took some time off. Life got busy and I didn't. So I definitely think it's within your own pace and what works for you. I don't think that it would be realistic to try to, do a lesson a day and knock it out in like 2 weeks. I don't think that would be a realistic goal and get the full benefit of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I needed to listen to a lesson, go back, look at the visuals, maybe go back and listen to the whole thing again or listen to portions of it and kind of marinate on it a little bit. And like Kimberly said, like she would put some action steps that would, she would encourage you to try out this new skill or recognize where this is impacting your life. And then I would move on to the next lesson. So I think for me, it just kind of depended on how heavy, because some of the lessons were a little more heavy than others.
Yes.
And some of those, it took me a little bit more time to kind of digest.
Yeah.
But definitely as you're going through the program, though, it was helpful for me to mark the lessons complete as I was going. So then when I came back in, I would say, oh yeah, I'm on this session right here. And then I think, I mean, you can talk about graduating, but like, I know, like for me, like I had gone through it. I reached out to Kimberly and was like, okay, I've finished all the sessions. I'm trying these skills in my life. I feel like I'm receiving benefit from what I've learned and from the skills that you've taught me. And here I am.
Yes. And so the only other thing I would add to that I think is really valuable for you guys to know is because the program really just officially launched just a couple of months ago, not long, like maybe 3 months ago now, exactly. So once we have more people in the program at the same time, then what you're going to see is, because there's a special Facebook community just for people going through the Christian method. And so I'm going to be doing more things in that group and having more conversations. Right now, there's not a ton of people that are actually actively going through it. And so it hasn't picked up that steam to be able to say, okay, like for example, if I were doing a live in that group or I was chatting something, I might say, okay, Amy, what module are you on right now? Okay, Judy, what module are you on right now? And I would ask, and you'd be able to see where you're at in comparison with other people and what's to come, and all of those great things are going on. But the graduation date will not take you by surprise at all, because every single week you're getting an email that is very helpful, but also very lengthy, and just kind of reminding you of where you're at in that. And of course, this is what I wanted to mention. There's a ton of support while you're in the program, a ton. I mean, you have access to me in so many different ways and to your group, but also postgraduate. You're an alumni.
Yeah.
So I haven't even created an alumni group yet because it's just me and Amy, but we are welcoming some of you guys down the road. There's going to be an alumni group where those that have been through the entire thing are working, hardcore working on implementing it in their life ongoing. Because those of you that have worked with me and you know the caliber of the things that I'm teaching you, like boundaries is a great example. We don't just finish boundaries and then put it up on the shelf and say, you got it, you're good. We're constantly bringing it back off the shelf and saying, well, how are you doing in your steps? How are you doing with those really tough people that you're trying to set a boundary with, right? You have to keep bringing it, keep recycling through that information. And that's how I visualize the alumni group being. That when something comes up, you know that you can get right on that group and chat and say, hey, I've got a situation. I don't remember what distortion this is, but I need some help. And you're always going to have it.
I'm glad to hear that.
See, she didn't even know.
I didn't even know that. I was wondering if I was able to continue with the Facebook group, and so I'm glad that there will be ongoing support.
Absolutely. There's no other way to do it. Yeah. So are there any other questions? I think I've done a pretty good job of watching what's coming through here. Victoria, I guess that's her way of saying you answered my question, because she's giving me a lot of hearts. I love that. She's so great. If I'm not covering anything, or if there's anything else you want to hear from Amy, this is the time. Please let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to transition into the second part of what we were going to talk about, which is the anxiety over a lifespan. But both of us will keep track of this. And if something, because I know sometimes you're trying to post something, chat something, and you're just not super fast on it, or you're trying to type out something pretty long, we're going to come back if we see that you put a question in there. But big takeaway is
do it. Just do it. It's great. I definitely, I've seen the impact in my life, and I am grateful that I had the opportunity to go through it. And I'm grateful for the ongoing support through the Facebook group, through the emails, through the check-ins. I think that's a nice component of this, is even though it is pre-recorded, it is, like podcast style, like there's still support behind it. Like I have no doubt that if I had questions or I didn't understand something, that I could reach out to you and you would be there to help me through that.
You know, something that I did not ask you, but I want to ask you now.
Okay.
That is, how has this program impacted your faith?
I definitely feel like it has made it stronger. When I was writing notes, and that was one thing I hadn't brought up yet. But what I like, Kimberly, is that you, through every session, added, there was scripture that supported the teaching that you were going through. And I love the extra touch of that you had some songs, some Christian songs that you recommended that would just reinforce the teaching. So I definitely feel like my faith has gotten stronger, because I do see how it all aligns, and how my faith is there, and that you have given me some skills that can help me just make my life overall better. So thank you for that.
That's a perfect way to say that you see how it aligns. That's the hope, that's the goal in that. And to hear that that's what you took away from this, is my faith aligns with this teaching, is just awesome. That we don't need to see those things as these two separate things that never need to, commingle, because they do. So thank you so much. You're still going to stick with me.
Yeah. Okay,
right?
great.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Are you guys so glad that Amy shared? And I, excellent. See, this is a lady right here who knows the value of participation for sure, because she has her own podcast and she's like, yes, I'm just going to keep saying, you got it. And all the emojis. I love it so much. Victoria, thank you. I'm just excited that you guys got to hear it from her. You've heard so much from me, but it's different hearing from the creator of the program versus someone that didn't have all this knowledge going into it and came in and came successfully through it and says, this is what it did for me. And I'm so thankful for that. Very grateful. Okay, so anxiety over the lifespan. Big topic, that we like to take on. Carol says, thank you for sharing. So helpful. I'm so glad.
Thank
Yay.
you. Thank you.
We like to take on big topics on this channel. And that's one that you're probably, I'll just say up front, you're probably not going to find just a ton of research on that exact topic. I know I haven't. I've been gathering empirical evidence just from what I've been treating over the years, and it all kind of points to this. But if I were to go back and Google this topic, I honestly wasn't finding anything. But here are the facts. There's a lot of disorders that fall underneath the anxiety umbrella. I'm not going to go through teaching you guys the DSM-5 tonight. You're welcome. That would be very boring. But just know that anxiety is a very, very different animal than depression. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation, is because as a person who might struggle with depression, you might realize that you don't know everything about it. And there's so many things that are triggers and stressors that lead to a full episode. But once you really know what you're looking for and you're managing it on hopefully a daily basis, you pretty much got it. I mean, some of you, I'd love for you to chat and let me know what your experience is, whether you agree or disagree with that. But you're able to understand, if I'm having a depressive episode, this is how I get my bearings again. I start looking at, what my eating and my sleeping and what has been going on in my life. Would anything result environmentally to feeling this way? Have I been taking all my medication, and does there need to be a change in that? Like, am I sticking to all of my appointments with my psychiatrist and therapist in my group and all of those things? And for the most part, not to simplify, because depression is so not simple, but it's easier. Hi, Linda. I'm so glad that you're here. And Joanna's saying, very important to know. Yes, a lot of people don't know this. They don't, for a lot of reasons. I'll just say there's a lot of reasons why they do not understand depression looks very, very different. Now, it looks different from person to person. So please hear me say that. But it also is, once you understand what depression is like for you, there's a lot of repetition, in the sense of, this is what I need to do to manage it. And if something gets off, chances are I better act quickly, because 2 weeks later, it's going to be considered a full-blown episode. Okay, so there's that piece. Anxiety doesn't work like that. Am I right? Anxiety people in the house, come on, right? It's like, you understand that you have anxiety and you know essentially what it feels like, but there's a lot of times that you cannot look in your environment and say, oh yeah, it was the time that happened, or when I had that conversation, or the fact that I have these interviews coming up, or whatever it is. You can't always point to your environment. No, sometimes you can. Thank you, Judy. She's giving me a shout out for anxiety. We got to celebrate this a little bit, right? Totally different, Pam says. Yes. But here's what I've noticed after treating depression for all of these years is that, and I'm trying to be very careful about this, because like I said, you're not going to be able to look up what I'm saying and, say, oh yeah, she's right here. This is all experience-based. And I can't nail it down to an age or to an age group, but I will just say, looking back, it's somewhere around, late 20s or early 30s, like somewhere in that decade of like late 20s, late 30s. That's when I start to see patients are saying, I developed this symptom. I've never had this before. I've never dealt with this before. So I want to hear from you guys. I'm going to tell you some examples that I know of. Amy knows that she's welcome to jump in and explain anything that whether it's personal or whether it's someone that you've dealt with in your own life. Carol says, meds are the first thing I look at when anxious. I'm glad you said that, because yes, I don't want that to be mistaken in my message. You would do some of the very same things. If you are starting to feel more anxious, you might also ground yourself with, have I been keeping up with my activity? Um, am I, am I having a healthy diet? Am I sleeping well? All of those things can contribute to it, but sometimes it's beyond that. I don't know exactly what it is. I see that Carol is saying, why do you think that it is age related? Gosh, I wish I knew. I wish I had an answer for you guys. I don't. And I didn't run across anything that came to the same conclusion that I did. I just know that when I've treated people that were younger and they were talking, and here's the best examples I can give you. Yes, Victoria, I agree with that. And Judy, comes and goes, seems to be when I am deep in feelings. See, these are good experiences. I'm going to learn a lot from you guys tonight too. When I've treated people that are in, like, I would say the younger range, they might say things like they know that they're experiencing anxiety, or at least they think they are, because of all the physical symptoms, strictly physical things like your heart racing, your palms are sweating, you might get headaches, you might have that weird nervous feeling in your actual stomach. And you're thinking, oh, well, or I'm just constantly worried. I can't get my brain to stop. It's just constantly racing with worry and what if, right? That's classic for anxiety. But what I notice is that as people, and this isn't the case with everybody. So I want to make sure you guys are hearing that. This is not a guaranteed thing. It's just something to be on the lookout for, because some people they're not expecting this, right? And they get a little bit older and they realize that some breakthrough symptoms are happening. Like they're getting woken up from their sleep and not being able to go back to sleep. I've seen that a lot. Or people that are having unique physical symptoms like a stomach ache. So not that feeling I was describing before where your actual stomach just feels kind of fluttery and nervous and sort of like unsettled, because sometimes anxiety can be a good thing and you still feel those exact symptoms, right? This is the kind where you feel like you're about to like need a toilet really quick. You are, something's going on here, right? That's different. And I've had people say, I've never experienced this before, where I feel like I'm getting sick. I literally feel like I'm getting sick. And because we have to look at this like the science that it is, it takes time. And some of you in the audience, I know that you know what I'm talking about, because you know that we have had excruciatingly detailed and long conversations where we're like, okay, what about this? Well, tell me about this. Well, because we're trying to narrow the focus to what is exactly happening and what are you noticing could possibly be bringing this on. It's like we have to rule out so many things. So do I think that I am such an expert on anxiety that I just tell people, well, skip the PCP, we'll figure this out? No, I go through the same motions that they're going through. I listen to what they're saying, and I might say, have you talked to your PCP about this? Do you need to see your neurologist? Because sometimes those symptoms are all, located up here physically. Cardiologist. I've sent people to the cardiologist before. I've sent people to the ENT, the gastroenterologist. I mean, you name it. I've sent people to all of those because I have to make sure that we're looking at those things if that's what's going on. But there are cases where the patient has come back to me and said, I'm in the clear. So first of all, PTL, we acknowledge, thank you, Jesus, for that. That's awesome that they're not dealing with any of those things that we were afraid of, but it still leaves us with, okay, so if this is anxiety, what are we going to do here, right? And it's not just the classical, I don't just treat the normal CBT of, okay, well, we need to make sure you're not worrying. We need to make sure that you don't have these ants that are causing you. Sometimes it's looking at a new medication. And I want to make sure if there's anything you just jump in. You know you can do that, right? You just jump in. Okay.
You're doing great.
Okay. Thank you, friend. That there are certain situations where I've had patients that they were already taking benzodiazepines, or they were taking anything else that falls under that anxiety umbrella. And because of the magnitude of their symptoms and the way in which that they were happening, I was very careful about this, but I would gradually bring up, when you see your psychiatrist or your PA, you might want to ask if there's something that can be done in addition to this. Because whatever it is that you have going on that is causing this intense stomach pain, intense headaches. One that I haven't mentioned yet is claustrophobia. I have had at least 2 or 3 patients in the last couple of years that have said that's a new symptom of their anxiety that they were not ever experiencing before.
That's me. Like just within the last few years, that's doing, CT scans, doing, I was just watching a video with my husband about like a water slide, and it was like, I would never go on that water. It was an enclosed water slide. And I was like, nope, that's not something I'm willing to do right now. And that a couple of years ago, that wouldn't have been an issue.
Give me 5 for that. I'm proud of you, friend. I'm proud of you for saying that, because you know what goes along with this? And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this so bad. We all know without a doubt that shame accompanies depression, right? That's a given. But do we ever think about shame accompanying anxiety as much? No. I would tell you as a clinician in the room, no. I don't have a lot of people that say, oh, this is just awful. Now, unless they were taught in their church upbringing that anxiety is a sin and that they should never have it, which, by the way, that's not correct. I'm not saying that it's not a sin at all to ever worry, but that's taking it out of context. Then you might not struggle with it the same way unless you've heard that. You got to watch those chats for the messages.
Okay, I'll watch the chat.
If I'm on a roll, I might need you every week.
All right, you keep going.
I'm so glad that you guys are here. But the reason why I wanted to bring that up is that a lot of people deal with shame because of situations that Amy just shared, right? Because they're like, I haven't dealt with this my whole life. This never even crossed my mind. And now all of a sudden I'm not going to say your age, but I'm over 25. I'm over 30.
Almost 50. Yeah.
Almost 50. And now I'm dealing with this. That doesn't make any sense. And it causes sometimes people to say, what is wrong with me? I hate that phrase, by the way. That is so shame-filled. That is totally a devil move. It just is, because there's nothing wrong with you. Do you have things to deal with? Do you have sin? Do you have deficiencies? Of course, but there's nothing wrong with you. God was perfect in the way he created you. But the devil wants you to believe that. There's nothing wrong with you. And one of the greatest things to stop and think about is it's okay if this changes into something else. Like Amy was giving that example of something that she probably went down water slides, in her previous years. And now all of a sudden, even watching it on the TV causes this reaction of, I'm never doing that. Right? Do you see how that's so a this thing? And it's not a this thing. She's not like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. No, it had a reaction up here of, I see these things different. Somehow the wiring started, shifting differently. And when I see that, I feel that. I can't do that. Right? So we need to have these conversations so that we can get on the right medications if we need it. If you start mentioning to your provider that you're dealing with claustrophobia, I promise you, they'll see that as a new symptom. If they're a good provider, they're going to be asking a lot of questions. They're not just going to say, oh, well, what you were taking that. Yeah, you're good. I'll see you in 3 months. They're going to say, oh, well, how long has that been going on? Well, can you tell me about the intensity of that? Well, when does that happen? Give me an example of that, right? They're asking assessing type questions because they're looking for that right medication. Because there are some medications that treat daily anxiety. There are some that treat situational, that they don't want you to get addicted to. There are some medications that treat OCD, like intrusive thought patterns of OCD, perfectionism, things of that. And they have to make sure that they're following that they're getting you in the right family, the right bracket of those medications. And it's not an easy thing to do. But I say that to you guys because you have to be your own advocate. When you're going to these appointments, whether it's therapy or psychiatry, you cannot minimize these nuances that happen. You have to say, well, since my last visit, this is what I'm noticing. And if it's hard for you to say it, I have 2 suggestions. Make sure you're writing it down before you go in, because you will probably forget. And number 2, rehearse, practice. I love when my patients come to me in session and they start talking about stuff like this. And I will say, okay, let's talk about what you might say to your psychiatrist. How might you want to bring this up? Let's make sure that you really do. And I might even play the psychiatrist in this role play where I'm just like rushing through the 15 minutes. Right? Because that happens. They're just like looking down like, oh yeah, everything's good? You doing good? Okay, still taking everything? You still da-da-da-da? But you have to be the one that's like, hey there, we got to talk. I need a second to tell you, I've got something different going on that I've never told you before. And I need some help. I need to know what you think about this, right? Those conversations need to take place. I know I've missed a couple things here. Carol mentioned IBS. Absolutely. Crohn's disease.
Mm-hmm.
What else goes along with Crohn's, Amy? There's another one that's very close.
Ulcerative colitis.
Thank you. Right. See, those things, I'm not saying that they are the result of your anxiety. I'm saying that your anxiety can start to manifest in a way that brings those episodes to the surface. So just when you think, oh, I'm managing my Crohn's, oh, I'm managing my IBS, if you're not managing all the things that you've got going on, you're going to see, I call it like the thing. You guys remember that? It's like you're constantly hitting something, right? I don't want you to do that. I want you to just do things that that benefit and touch all of those things. So if you set up a routine where you are getting daily activity, you are eating healthy things, you are checking in with yourself, you are staying hydrated, you are in therapy, you are getting good sleep hygiene, chances are all those things we're mentioning are going to look fairly even. And if they're not, what are you going to do about it? You're going to share with your providers. Carol is saying she was afraid when you think you're losing your mind, right? That goes along with what in the world is wrong with me, because you're thinking this wasn't a problem before. Why is this a problem now? Judy is saying hormones. I think that's also a part of that. I can't say that that's why we're not seeing research and data about this. I don't have an explanation for that, but it certainly would answer the question of why was I not seeing patients in their 20s that were talking about this. They were just sort of like textbook, not easy, but textbook anxiety versus all of these things where we're like, oh my gosh, you're really throwing me for a loop here. So you're feeling like you're getting sick. Your IBS is flaring up. Your Crohn's is doing this. You know, you're having claustrophobia and you've never had that in your life. You're having panic attacks and you've never had that in your life. I want to normalize that by saying, apparently it's a part of the illness. It's a part of the disease process is actually what we call it. So just if you can have a name for it, it helps you to feel like you're being more clinical about it. It kind of, it levels these things to a physical place, then do that, right? Because that's exactly what this is. And Joanna is saying, absolutely. I love the feedback I'm getting from you guys. I realize that it's already 8 o'clock and I knew this was going to be difficult to cover a lot of things all in this time, but I want to make sure I'm answering. A lot of what I'm seeing here has been like, you're right. Yes, this is true. But if there's any questions that you have about that is appropriate for this format tonight, I would love to be able to address that. But as you've seen, and as you've seen, a lot of times I have to do things in parts, right? I am not the new kid on the block. I've been doing this a long time. And so there's times where I talk about something and then I realize, oh, like this is part 2. Several weeks ago, we talked about this and I kind of skimmed the surface because there were other things that we were discussing. And then I realized I wanted to go back and give you guys a whole but a more robust approach to this so that you're realizing what I meant when I said it can change over your lifetime. All I'm saying really is be prepared. Be prepared. It may not happen to every single person, but I know a lot of people that it has happened with. And if you're prepared for it, you're going to be less scared, right? And you're also going to be a little more eager or more confident in going to your medical team and saying, you know what? I've heard about this. I've heard that this could happen. I didn't realize it could happen to me, but we need to talk about this because I've got a life to live. You know, I don't want to tell my kid I can never go down a slide with them or that I'm never going to go in an elevator again or go through a car wash. I mean, these are all common things that unfortunately anxiety and claustrophobia can rob you of. So you might need a whole set of skills just for those things. But I promise you, if you have conversations about this, medication is definitely a hope. It's absolutely a hope. It might mean that you have to change that cocktail a little bit more, but is there anybody here that would say that you're not worth that? Right? because you are. You're worth that. Pam is saying, thanks again for coming, Amy.
Thank you, Pam.
And Joanna's saying, I reacted to my husband's depression with anxiety because I didn't know how to help him. That's a loaded statement, and it's something that a lot of people can relate to. And even when we are, because I hear this from people all the time. I heard it just today, actually. Even when we are at a stage of our life where we're thinking, gosh, I really wish I was not learning this at an older part of my life. I wish that I knew this when I was, in my 20s. I think to some degree, every single one of us could say that about something, right? I wish I knew that. I wish I would have. There's always going to be situations that we would consider like regretful, but I just want to encourage you in the format of CBT, try to reframe that. If you look at it with a lot of regret and a lot of disappointment in yourself or maybe in others, your feelings are going to match that. So you're going to feel upset and angry and disappointed and frustrated and all of those things. But if you reframed it to, I'm just really glad I'm learning it now because I have relationships right now that need this in me, and you're one of them. You are absolutely one of them. Do you know that you are the most important human relationship you're ever going to have? You are. I mean, you can try to debate that, but go watch my video on self-care from a couple weeks ago, right? Caring about yourself means that you ultimately are going to be caring about other people, and you are the most important human relationship. Everything that you do with other people is birthed from how you see yourself and how you see life. So Judy is saying skills and tools will make life so much easier. That's funny that she says that. Yes, it absolutely is going to make life easier, but the getting there is something that you have to have a community for, or you are going to jump off the train. You're going to be like, I'm out of here. This is too much. This is too hard. I'm not getting this. But if you have a team of people and a community that's like, you know what, Amy, I felt that way before. Just stay there. We're going to get there together. Or this is what helped me. You realize that, in many ways we're all in this together. We have to encourage each other, but we're not meant to live life alone. We are not meant to live life without other people that God has put there. So utilize that. I'm so glad that you guys were here tonight. As always, I'm always open to new topics that you guys are wanting to hear in the future. I covered that. I'm kind of losing track here, but I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, because last week we didn't meet because it was Memorial Day and I posted a video on grief. So if you haven't watched that, please go back and watch that. I think it could benefit, no matter what you've dealt with, I think it could benefit you. But I took a suggestion from one of you guys, and that's where the self-care came in. So let me know. I'm going to try my best to always cover things in a way that is not prescriptive. It is not giving direct counsel on things in your life. It's just kind of giving this overview of things that so many of us can apply. But you might take what you're hearing from Amy or I, and you might say, I want to know how to apply that to me, or I want to understand that from this perspective. Go find the help. Or contact me if you're a part of my community Facebook group, and I will definitely do whatever I can to get you going in the right direction. But I also am applauding Amy for being here, for giving us the time and coming over here and sharing your experience and encouraging other people.
Thank you. I'm truly honored that I got to go through this program and knowing that I'll have ongoing support and that it's not, my work isn't done. It's an ongoing thing where I'm going to continue to implement the skills that I learned and to know that I have a team, a support group on the Facebook page, and then I have your support. So thank you guys for letting me come today and be part of this.
There's a lot of congratulations. A lot of people saying this has been a wonderful conversation. Victoria, thank you for saying that. I just really encourage you guys. There's so many people that were showing interest in watching this video, and they may or may not have been able to make it. Will you please just do everything that you can to encourage people to go back? Just if you missed this, you didn't miss your whole opportunity. Have them go back and watch these things. Now that I'm understanding YouTube so much better, I can tell you that it really does matter if you give it the thumbs up. It really does matter if you subscribe and if you share. I hated hearing that like, oh, like and subscribe and share and all of that stuff. And I just thought, does that really even matter? It does, because I actually did a whole study on that recently, and it actually puts these videos in front of the people that are searching for things like this. And we want that to happen. So please share this with your family and friends. The channel, I'm working on getting more things there, but you can count on the channel focusing on mental health and faith. And both of those things, like Amy was saying, those are lifetime journeys. We're never going to understand everything about what it means to be a Christian and to follow Christ and to be like him, but we're on the journey. We're doing the best we can, and that's exactly how I want you to see your mental health, is that you're not going to know all of it, but you're going to keep growing and keep getting better, and your life will improve, and so will those relationships, those people around you. So thank you guys for your time. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Marcia says, thank you, Amy, for being such a great cheerleader for the program, and for Kimberly, that Marcia, she's a special lady. Some of you guys might know why. All right. I am so thankful for you guys. I'm going to give you the big heart just like I did for boundaries. So I will see you guys next week. Have a great week. I love how it keeps coming. That's so awesome.